Good afternoon, my good people. This is the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show where we talk about real life real estate situations, but we bring you real life real estate solutions. I'm your host, Glenn Glasper, affectionately known as Mr. Dollar Out of a Dime. And I have a awesome guest today. I want to tell you a whole lot about him, but I don't want to take away from what he's going to be sharing with us today. Mr. Ivan Alpha is actually a guest that I've been wanting to get on our show for quite some time. I had to beg him. I had to slip him some money under the table to get him to come on and hang out with us. But he's going to be sharing with us quite a bit of information on how this whole situation that we're all faced with today as COVID-19, the pandemic and all that, how it actually has helped him. Some of us will say force, but I believe he says it helped him go into 100% virtual to get his business up and running online. So we're going to get right into it, and I'm going to bring him on to share with us today. So stick around. Thank you all for joining us, and be sure to ask your questions because this young man is a wealth of knowledge. He is a wealth of information, and he's certainly open to sharing with us. And I'm glad to have him on with us today. Without further ado, I'm going to bring in Mr. Ivan Alpha.
What is going on?
How you doing, sir? Listen. I'm looking at myself in the camera, and I was listening to her what you said about my me flexing a little bit. So I'm gonna pull my sleeves down.
Gotta catch up with you.
How you doing today, sir?
Good. How about you, brother?
Great. Listen, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I told the folks, I said, I know you're going to share some awesome information with us. But I want to give you an opportunity to tell the folks a little bit more about who you are and maybe possibly, what you got going on.
Okay, cool. So life story in 30 seconds. Let's go. Let's start when I was a fetus.
Take your time. I know with the knowledge and the experience you have, you probably can't squeeze it into 30 seconds. So take your time.
Okay. So I grew up in Chicago, lower income zone, in the middle of gentrification. And it was a great experience. Like, of course, not in the moment, you don't feel that, but it develops thick skin, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And I got into, I think my first job was McDonald's or like working for a school. So a little like minimum wage stuff, right? Then I came to Georgia to take care of my mom. She actually moved down here. She got tired of the cold.
Wow.
Came to take care of her. We started a little business together. I call that my college year because that business went straight.
The best education sometimes, though.
Yeah, it was great. Looking back at it, like keeping an eye on cash flow, right? Getting those reserves, those sales, so that you could develop a good business. So coming out of that, I went into like a small business, like doing website stuff, then went into corporate America, the traditional American dream type stuff.
Yeah. Until
I realized this is not really my dream at all. I got to make my own dream. So over the years, my 20s, I developed, I got rental properties. I would sell them, get more capital to buy more, and I would just kind of leapfrog that way.
Wow.
Yeah. But towards the end of my 20s, I was able to leave my job. But I noticed in reflection, I could have done this a whole lot sooner if I had actually focused on figuring out wholesaling. Yeah. So I actually even had coaches before, and I would just procrastinate on what they were telling me to do.
Now you're hitting the pain point right there. We're definitely going to come back to that. I don't want to cut you off, but I definitely want to talk about that.
Okay. Well, from leaving my job, I was able to collect about a total of 80 doors. It's always been in the state of selling or buying. We ended up selling a 63-unit apartment complex, my partners and I, for that specific big old complex about a year ago. So back down to about 8 doors nowadays. So rental properties are great. I can speak to more of that later. But yeah, rental properties and wholesaling is what I do nowadays, and I have a team working for me on it.
Good stuff. 80 doors. 80 doors by the age of 27. Is that right?
Yep.
Wow. So let me ask a question. Now I know this is going to this is an elementary question, of course. But just for the viewers that may or may not understand how this all comes together, what did you go through to obtain 80 doors? Was it, I mean, and you mentioned you were buying and selling.
Mhm.
So were you holding 80 doors at once? And if so, how did you get to the point of being able to do that?
So the foundation is around networking.
Hmm.
So the reason I was even able to be a part of that 63 unit, like, oh, this is so awesome. Literally, I met a guy at some local RIA, and I hung out with him, a couple weeks later at a bar. We were just hanging out, just making friends. And he said, hey, I came across this deal, collecting a couple partners together. You want to be a part of this? And it's really just that simple. And it really, not just networking, it takes a matter of focus, right? Because he would not have even asked me that if he didn't see that I had the laser-like focus in what I was doing with real estate.
Yeah. And that's very important. Oftentimes people miss that when you're networking, I often tell people, many of my colleagues say that, some of the main foundations in this business is relationships.
Yeah.
Of course, reputation is one of them, but building relationships and networking is definitely a major part of becoming successful or even maintaining a level of success in this business. So,
yeah. And that's the point too. Like, relationships are built on your word too, right?
Absolutely.
You actually literally have to focus, because if you don't, your word is out the window.
Yes. Yeah. And and that's the nature of what we do. Unfortunately, sometimes, when we're doing what we do, in real estate, of course, but that being that there's so many different areas and different caveats to how we do what we do in real estate, you have to really focus on the task at hand, because at times things can go off the rail in what we do. So, and we call that real life real estate investing.
Yeah. And you talking about that makes me think of, like, it's so easy to get overwhelmed about this stuff.
Yes.
Which is probably why I procrastinated. Like, oh, I don't have this one question answered, or I don't know this other thing. But I mean, there's plenty of resources. I mean, you're one of them, right?
Yes. Yeah. I like to think so. Maybe.
Some of us are actually hungry to teach folks this stuff, as opposed to those other folks that are like, this is all my information. Mine.
Yeah, and that in and of itself is a type of mindset that I had experienced when I first got started, back in 98, I believe it was. I was learning, and I wanted to have all these people come together with me to do this business of real estate. And just so many of them at the time were like, let me learn it and then I'll come back and help you. And I'm like, well, why don't we learn it together and then we work on it? A couple people I told about it, the idea, and they went and learned it and, went on and tried to do it on their own. And, 22 years later, they're not doing this anymore, and I still am. So,
yeah, you can't be burning bridges.
Definitely, unfortunate. So let's go back to that. You mentioned that you have mentors, or you had mentors, and you didn't listen to them. I'm sure that's going to take the rest of this hour conversation to cover, but but tell me a little bit more of how that happened. What was it that you think was missing? Was it that you said you weren't doing what you were supposed to do? Tell me how that happened.
So, it's so easy to go to these seminars, going to the evening, Saturday, full day seminars, and just gobble up all the information and just leave it there. I was that guy that would just gobble up and not do anything with it.
Yeah.
I think the last guy I purchased from was Don DeRosa. So he taught me quite a lot. Like, the dude has a pretty good package for what he shared at that time. I don't know if he's still sharing that sort of stuff. But I was able to, I guess it's still, even after he gave me his program, I bought it for, I think, $9.97. I still took like 2 years to actually get through all of it. So yeah, those were mentors. But I think this is a a deeper a meaning, a mentor. And that's probably the reason why I've had success nowadays. Once I flip the switch of this is what I want to do, um, mentors are the only way that you will get a fast track to success. Yes. I remember, like, even in my high school days, I got a mentor in learning how to build websites. Of course, my own father was even a mentor to me, right? Because he was an entrepreneur himself. It didn't go so hot all the time, but he was able to teach me lessons. So just going after mentors was another big lesson for me. Not even just in a real estate setting, but in every sort of setting, I would be hungry for knowledge. I would meet people in elevators that would end up being amazing, mentors for me. For example, one of my favorite mentors, he actually used to be an interrogator when we were in Korea, when we had a US base over there. So I wouldn't have had that mentor if I was like, oh, I'm so afraid to talk to people. I had the fear mentality, right, of talking to people at one point in my life, but then I realized the end result way outweighs the embarrassment that could potentially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone that's getting started in this business? And what would you say to someone about having a mentor? How important is it? You kind of outlined it, I want to, speak to the folks that are watching and tell them what was one of the aha moments for you as it relates to having had a mentor?
The aha moments. Okay, so let's deal with the rejection part of it first. So when I was working in corporate, there was a point where I didn't really have embarrassment about approaching people or networking. And there was this one time there was having a lunch buffet company type event in this particular conference room. And as I approached that room, I noticed one of the executives, like big wig VP, came to the buffet and was collecting food. And I said, hey, who invited this guy? This is for the team only.
Did you know it was the VP?
What was that?
Did you know he was the VP?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you were being funny. Okay.
He was like, he did not laugh at all. He had no sense of humor. So I was like, oh man, this could probably end up bad for me. But I still had in my head, I'm having fun. Like other people laughed. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I just go with the flow. So later, I guess a couple months later, he ended up getting laid off. So it literally didn't actually matter. Whereas, the best mentors I've had in my life, they have a great sense of humor. They're open to like having fun. They're not like, these watchtowers that are immovable. So that's how to, I guess, approach mentors and get over the potential embarrassment or fear you have of it. Did I address your question, or what were?
Well, I was, and when you did kind of that was very helpful, because that right there is some of why a lot of people won't go to get a mentor, because and it's interesting. I find in many cases that people are afraid to say that they don't know, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to a situation where they're trying to approach something that they want, and the biggest hurdle is saying that I don't know. I mean, that's even for those of us that have been doing what we do for quite some time. We are, I can't say I'm one of those, because I'm okay with saying I don't know. But just reaching out for that additional help.
Dude, that is such a good point. Yes. It makes me think of when I had that fear. I was caught on literally one question. I think it was like how to raise capital.
Yes.
And I was afraid to ask the coach, like, oh, he might think I'm a moron, like I should know this. But that set me back months just because I was afraid to ask that question.
Yes. And I find now, even there's so many different things that I'm learning now that relate to helping to build my business. And I'm realizing more and more there are so many different types of resources that are available that people can tap into. But the one thing that's the barrier is reaching out for that help. And the other thing that we were going to talk about is what was the aha moment. So when you eventually got to the point of getting a mentor, I know it was something, for me, when I really tapped into people, allowing people to teach me, because I was, accustomed to learning things on my own. The aha moment for me was I could shave years of trouble off of my learning curve and my earning potential if I just tapped into someone, allowing someone to teach me. What was your aha moment, for obtaining a mentor?
It comes down to one statement. This is not who I am. Being corporate, behind the keyboard, like dealing with weird politics. Like, I think there was even a dude that, like, I don't know how to put it into words. Like, his frustration level was not something I could empathize with.
Wow.
In my team. But I think even larger than that, I had somebody, actually a mentor was my last manager at corporate. She was so rare. She actually told me, like, hey, Ivan, you could be a developer, a website developer for the rest of your life, but I think you're great at like management, at like executive, like managing relationships. I just don't, like, she could have been like, hey, I want to collect as many resources, do as much output on this web development as I can. But instead, she actually was like, I want to help this guy grow. So it's rare to find those sorts of managers because, they are more about getting the output done.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for her being a mentor to me too.
That's important. Again, many times over, we get stuck and the answer is right in front of us. It's just taking the additional step to being able to get across to getting it, and I know that even with people that are in the real estate business, there's so many different areas of where information is coming from. It's hard to decipher what's real and what's not. So getting to the point of, I want to go back to where you're talking about being able to obtain 80 doors. How was that progression for you? I know you said you partnered with some people to do that, but was there, what did you learn as a result of that? Or where you had some type of experience before going through that?
Oh, okay. So the good thing is the guys I was partnered with, they handled stuff like that all the time. So they took the majority of just managing it. So it was truly passive for me. So getting at how I actually got there. So there was some capital investment, right? But that was also from the result of me wholesaling, selling some rental properties over the past few years. I had some reserves. But ultimately, it all came to a head when I was able to leave my job. That aha moment of like, well, I actually don't belong here, was about 3 months. And along those 3 months, I had lunch with that guy or dinner with that guy at that bar. And he presented that opportunity to me when I was looking to invest, right? So I made the decision to, what is all the things I have in my inventory to create.
Uh-oh, did we lose you? Ivan, you're still with me? I think you might have froze a little.
Way you don't have to take it all out of your pocket.
Okay.
So
I think you froze for a moment there.
Oh, I froze for a moment? Okay.
Yeah, you're good now, though.
Okay. So for me, it was a combination of selling property, cash out, refinancing some equity out of a property. Some people may not know that if you have a property that has let's say you bought it for 100, over a year or 2 years, it created 130 to 150 in equity. Now it's worth that much. Now you have about 20 to 30,000 you could pull out of that if it's 150 valuation and your mortgage is 100,000. So there's ways you could pull that money out, use it to invest in potentially 1 to 2 more properties using 30,000, right?
Wow.
So it's a matter of, I collected all my relationships, all my assets, and leveraged every single relationship resource that I had to make it a reality. Yeah.
Now that's $1 million worth of information right there for the people that are watching that are actually paying attention to what you said. Because not only does that put you in a position to be able to use funds without having to pay taxes on them, but you can, like you said, you use the word leverage that into the next potential opportunity. So great stuff.
Yeah. And in case I cut out for a certain section, I did want to mention for people that don't know how to like not use their own capital and still get real estate done, investment deals done. In case I cut off for that part, you could still get partners that don't have the time to actually look for deals and manage the deals. So there's different ways to do that too without using your own capital. I even took on partners myself that had capital but didn't have the time because I had like a full-time job and certain flips.
Absolutely. That was I've actually done quite a bit of that myself. Tell me, how does that process work for you though? So what do you do? So do you seek out these people, or are these people seeking you to help them? How do you go about doing that?
So it's a variety. Like I get calls all the time, right? Like, hey, how could I get involved with you? Get some deals from you. I also I do speaking engagements regularly. The last one I did was in Wisconsin. And I'm sure you've been at networking events. I'm a networking beast.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I don't know what it is. I guess I have come to learn the end result is better than any potential rejection, right? It's a beautiful time. You can make a BFF in 5 seconds if you wanted to.
Absolutely.
Oh man, am I deviating from the question again? What was it?
No. Actually, you basically you're hitting on the point of how you were able to obtain these type of partnerships where you're putting together the deals for people.
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, it comes to relationships, but also you have to make research. You have to have that laser focus that we brought up before. You have to go look at deals, know your numbers, and present it to where it would be absolutely ridiculous for them to say no.
Right.
Like one of the first deals I did, with a flip with a partner, was we bought it for, I believe, 140,000, needed about 20 grand of repairs, and we could sell it. The market was clearly showing 225.
Wow.
So of course they're not going to be like, oh, hold on. So when you know your education, when you know your stuff, and even if you don't know your stuff, really, you could come to learn it. You could raise capital that way, get partners that way.
Absolutely. Great stuff. I mean, and that, I imagine that takes a bit of knowing about what you're doing in order to be able to do that. So tell us a little bit about the experience level that you've obtained in doing what you do. So, of course, you said you got started doing, the apartments and things like that. So what got you into why real estate? I mean, I know you were looking at something else, being in corporate, and some opportunities came across your desk. But what was it that said real estate was going to be the vehicle for you?
Passive income, but I think even more heart-based relationships.
Yeah,
I just love being around people, dude, and making people feel good.
Yes.
And what better way to make them feel good is like, dude, check out this house we just flipped together.
Right.
We're gonna be a nice family that's gonna enjoy this beautiful thing we just made.
Absolutely.
We're making nasty money from it.
Right. So Ivan, you're forcing me to pull out the spiritual side of you. I was going to give you a little bit of room, but I know a little bit about who you are, and and kind of what you stand for. So without taking this into a spiritual program. So tell us a little bit about your speaking engagements. What is it that you go and speak about that allows you to be able to connect with people?
Oh, okay, so I speak on the concept of power, which is based on my book. It's people power, other people's money or resources, and winning with all that winning, and then enjoying it, and then finally reserving it. And reserving could mean a bunch of different ways, right? Reserving money is one thing, but also reserving energy could be an equal thing. For example, in relationships, you don't want to be wasting energy, right, with other people you don't care about. So I speak about that sort of concept, which helps the people to get tangible ways to change their mindset, if they want to do real estate or if they want to do something else. I try my best to generalize it because a lot of people can't really get the nitty-gritty numbers all the time with real estate, right? Even a settlement statement when you're at a closing is like, these are like 2,000 lines, bro.
Why do we need all this information?
Yeah, so I try to break it down as best as I can. And the first one, people power, is definitely about relationships, right? And figuring out what your superpower is to develop relationships, to cut out toxic relationships that are just eating at your energy. I talk about other people's money, raising it, how you're actually benefiting them from that, because banks are basically robbing everybody's money, like ridiculous interest rates. So yeah, that's the sort of stuff I speak on. Before Wisconsin, I actually did a big speaking engagement here, about 50 people in downtown Atlanta. So as we get further to the closure, I could definitely share how people could stay apprised of the different stuff I'm doing and upcoming opportunities.
Okay, very good, very good. So let's talk about what we initially said we were going to share with the folks today, about this whole pandemic situation. And
I thought you were going to talk about spiritual stuff.
Well, I was giving you an avenue, but
Let's go. Give me the hard questions. Let's go.
See, I wore my God is dope T-shirt just for you.
Thank you. You see my Facebook posts.
Yes, indeed. Right. Let's talk about. So we'll get into that. I definitely want to get into that as well. But let's talk about how COVID and our whole pandemic situation, how that kind of forced you into the virtual way of life of doing things.
Oh, okay. So being a real estate entrepreneur, it could be so easy to be stuck in the weeds of life, right? Like, oh, I gotta get this deal done. I gotta get that. Talk to this person, that person. So I never made time to make a training and accountability type platform online for my people. Now it's about 4 associates I have under me. So since they were working remotely, like I couldn't really be like, at their desk, 10 feet away, like, hey, why don't you make more calls? So I had to learn, okay, I got to make some sort of online platform so that they could have their own accountability, but also me kind of track measurements, like calls they're making per day, the messages, the negotiations, the contracts that are going out. So I figured out a way to basically make it all virtual. Measure how many outbound marketing materials are going out through X associate, Y person, just tracking every single part of the process so that there's accountability, but there's also more effectiveness. And it's actually been a lot of their dreams to be able to just do this stuff wherever in the world. So this alleviates that. If you could have the software to do everything online, send out contracts in 5 minutes, you, to a large extent, even remove me, right? Mm-hmm. Which is great as a business owner because you're supposed to not be in the weeds all the time.
Definitely.
So I'm really grateful for COVID, actually, because I wouldn't have forced myself to make time for all that stuff, that training, the manuals, the just video resources. I've done, screen shares. Like, this is how you target like a not saturated area, because that's another big problem in real estate, right? There's a lot of areas that are just like investors are gobbling up, or it's like super high price zone. Like Buckhead, you wouldn't be able to find a deal unless you called a million people there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just inefficient, right? But a beginner associate would not know that, working for me or a student. So that sort of resource I was able to make videos on. Yeah.
Great stuff. Great stuff. And I know people might, because there's so much emotion and we'll say politics involved and what's happening with COVID and this whole deal. So some people might not appreciate hearing that COVID is a good thing for some people. Because yes, people have lost loved ones, and and there's so many different things going on as a result of that. But if for those of us that are really looking at ways that we could pivot, is what many of us had to do in this situation, and taking advantage of, we'll call it, the opportunity to be able to pivot. I'm sure many other folks, it's not just you and I, that can see the benefits of being able to say, or having someone tell us, I'll use my air quotes, someone tell us that you have to stay in the house. You have to sit down, and that ultimately leads to us having to focus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, like, you're a networker just like I am. Much of the time that I spend now doing a lot that I do on building my business, I would probably be out somewhere networking.
Mm-hmm.
Or in some cases, I mean, I actually have learned to stop talking on the phone as much as I used to.
Can I just jump in, Rohit?
Go ahead.
You said something very interesting about pivoting.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard in a study recently that it was surprising. You would think team, capital, the right partners are all the right resources, the number one resources to get a business off the ground and like exploding. But the study actually showed it was about timing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that was interesting because, I mean, of course, condolences to the folks that are not doing hot right now from COVID. But as investors, our job is to offset risk as much as we can. And the reality is, like, if we're talking about Warren Buffett, he made $10 billion off of 2008.
Yes.
Yeah. So for us to like not focus or not, take advantage of what's happening, it'll be just for your generation to come. You're kind of robbing money from them because you're just kind of holding up for other reasons, whereas other people are going to be in this game and are going to make $10 billion again.
Yeah. I mean, not to mention, even as a result of the unfortunate tragedy of 9/11, there were millionaires and billionaires made as a result of that situation because of, then the economy taking a turn then, and there were opportunities created in those times as well. So it's just how we look at things and how we can make things beneficial, because like you said, I mean, future generations are going to have to pay the cost of a lot of what's happening now.
Oh yeah.
But we're, as entrepreneurs, should be positioning ourselves so that our generations from our our lineage don't have to be in a position where they can't afford to chip in at least their part if necessary. So as a result of creating generational wealth, that's what this is mostly about for many of us. So I get it. So now you mentioned a software. So and you know, and I know, you know, some of this you may not be able to give a lot of your multi-million-dollar trade secrets. Um, but is this software that you said that you use to organize things in a way? Is that something you created, or is that something that you just tapped into to use that's on the market? Or I mean, if you don't mind sharing.
No, it's cool. So there's a bunch of moving parts in real estate, like I mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm developing, it should be released in the next 1 to 2 weeks, is combining all the moving parts, like lead generation, CRM, customer lead tracking, closing management, transaction coordination, combining all that stuff so it's not as overwhelming. And I'm going to just release it over the coming weeks. So that sort of thing is something that I'm working on. And I guess one little preview into it, if you want a good CRM that we're using, it's called Flowlu. So FLOLU. Jesus, I don't know how to spell it. FLOWLU.com. Flowlu.com.
This is yours, right? So we need to make sure you know how to spell yours.
So this is actually a CRM that just connects into it.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, and you mentioned it's so many moving parts in what we do. And you know, I'll be honest, you know, I was actually on a coaching call with my students this past Monday, and I was explaining them the tools that I'm showing them now how to use, and they were asking me questions and how do you do this and how do you do it? I'm like, let me get my technical person on the line and have him show you how to do it, because I mean that's kind of the nature of where we are right now, and most of what we do. For those of us that are, you know, building a business, like a lot of the technical stuff, I'd like to know it, but I don't have to know it.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody in place that can manage that part. You know, my goal, as I mentioned to them, is to get you to the closing table. You know, the inner workings of the technical things, I don't, you know, spend a whole lot of time on that. But it seems like what you have going on, because it seems like, I mean, you mentioned having a background in web development. Does that help in doing what you do?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So there's ways to connect software, especially connecting software is something you really want to do and making it maximum efficiency, because if something is working well, you don't want to rebuild the wheel, right?
Absolutely.
I could spend, you know, whatever thousands of dollars making some software from scratch, but it's already made and it's working exactly what we needed to do for this section of the puzzle. So Flowlu happens to be one section of the puzzle. There's also like follow-up sequences that I'm making in my kind of parent custom software section, because as I'm sure you know too, like 90% of deals, the juicier deals, are from follow-up game, right? So that's incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great stuff, man. I can't wait till you get it all up and running, because I might want to be a first customer to have my team figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I'll make a crash course just for you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have a IT background. My IT background is more on the hardware side rather than the software side. So, you know, I wasn't the one to come in and do the programming and all that. I just made sure your hard drive come on. So
okay. Cool.
Yeah. So
hardware, you can make a robot that'll
right. Well, and that's just about how I was able to function then. But you know, now I don't really know a whole lot about that stuff now. So I have to call the tech support people to help me get my computer running when something's wrong. That's
that focus right there. You're focusing on your best talents now.
Yes. And well, and you know, then too, I have to admit, like I'm learning some new software to develop some things in my business, and it's a significant learning curve. And I'm asking my wife asked me, she said, shouldn't you have somebody else doing that? I say, yeah, but I got to learn it in order to tell them how to do it.
Yeah, that's actually another point, because dude, I was so frustrated with like our older systems. It would take like 7 clicks just to get a lead in the system. The contact, you got to make a property, you got to connect the property and the contact. So I was like, dude, if we're gonna make volume, they got to add these leads in like less than 1 click, less than 5 seconds, so they can move on to the next lead.
Wow.
So that was another part of why I decided to make this online platform.
Wow, that sounds amazing, man. I can't wait to see it come together. So you know, you the people that are watching are witnesses that said you're going to make me an exclusive member.
$1 million a month, just
right. Hey, listen, if it'll do what you said it'll do, it'll eventually be worth it down the line.
yeah, exactly.
We have Mr. Charlie Fowler on with us. He said, let's make sure all the participants know that they can get a specialized investor legal service bundle at a big discount through Glenn. Charlie, thank you so much, man. Charlie's always an advocate for sharing great information with our folks as it relates to protecting themselves legally. So thank you so much, Charlie. Charlie, it's time for you to come back on the show again, man. We have to get you on to share some great information about that again.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you for tuning in. Now, you talk about a king, one of the kings of networking. That's Mr. Charlie Fowler.
Oh, yeah. Beast mode.
Right.
I don't know if I've ever not seen him in a networking.
I know, right? It's like, didn't I just see you here? How are you at 2 places at one time? I think Charlie.
Dude goes to every single one. He's like, pandas. He's at that networking event.
Absolutely. Yeah, Charlie's one of my Legal Shield mentors, and he shows if it's somebody that's going to teach you how to get the job done as it relates to networking, he's definitely one of the guys.
yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. So, Ivan, tell us now, this software that you're developing, how many different moving parts? Because we mentioned that there's several different moving parts in what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So can you kind of give us a little bit of a breakdown, give us a little bit of information on how it comes together? So now we're talking acquisitions, dispositions, lead generation. So all of this is going to be able to go into this software that you're developing?
So 90% of our business, right, wholesaling is, well, that's one of our businesses, is volume and acquisitions. So 90% of the software is going to be around acquisitions.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't have volume, right, then you can't really make like buku money.
Right.
So it's focused around that. But then on the disposition side, you know, it's a lot more easier to control that. So you have the lead, you have what it is, a flip. Then you have a buyer. You just text blast or email blast or call a couple buyers. They're together. Then you checklist a couple items and you're done. The acquisitions piece is where a lot of moving parts happen, because you could be negotiating price. You could be negotiating the tenant being vacant by of the property by 30 days from now. You may even want to pay the tenant, right? If they have a place to move to within 2 weeks, and let's say you have a 75 grand spread deal, of course you're going to give them like, what do you need, like 2,000, 3,000? I'll set you up in a hotel today. So that's the moving part that we got to measure for, and then we also have to measure the performance, right? So if you're not making calls, if you're not sending out marketing on a consistent basis, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Definitely.
So tracking that sort of stuff is where the majority is going to be the acquisitions piece. There's also the matter of contracts, right, on the acquisition side. So that's a part of how the software connects into automatic e-sign software, right? Send out the contract. I don't want to think about it anymore. I only want to think about it if the seller says, hey, instead of 14 days due diligence, could you make it 10 days due diligence? Okay, cool. I'll just update that real quick. It's back off to you. Sign it.
Got it. So one of the things I want to talk about, I mean, because when people hear these things and they hear about all these moving parts, that's one of the challenges that people have. Well, I guess one of the things that sets people apart from being able to get into the business of real estate investing? Some would say money and other resources are some of the things that sets people apart from getting into real estate investing. How do you think? What do you think? Is money something that separates people from getting into real estate investing?
Nah. I used to think the same until I had a boatload of money and I still didn't have a way to scale. That's funny to say, but money ended up being a blocker of some sort for me.
Isn't that strange though?
Yeah. Because, I'm hungry, right? Like I want to scale up fast. So I noticed even though I had a good chunk of change, I still wanted, a lot of properties.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was only able to stretch that money so far. So I ended up taking on partners anyways.
Right.
What was the question again?
So what do you think do you think money is the reason that stops people from getting into real estate investing?
Oh, the hindrance. Okay. So there's going back to spirituality, there's a Bible verse that says,
I knew I was going to get it out of you.
I'll paraphrase it because I don't know it offhand. It's basically okay to build a temple one stone at a time. So a lot of folks, not just about real estate, right? About maybe habits. They're frustrated when they don't hit $1 million in a day. But The reality is it takes time, one stone at a time. And don't be this guy that's just like, I called one person today. That's a stone.
Right.
Oh man, come on. Like that's not even a stone. That's like what? Wheatgrass?
Right.
Come on, man. You gotta have some more, like a bigger measurement.
Right.
100 people today.
Definitely. Yeah. So I mean, you would say the ambition more than anything is probably the hindrance for folks than it is money. And funny you mentioned that because that takes me back to what you said about not listening to what the mentor tells you. Oftentimes I speak to people and, you give them a lot of the guidance, you give them the bullet points. You think about it. There's tons of information on YouTube and all these other places and Google about how to get started in real estate investing. And oftentimes people won't take the first step to pull the trigger to even attempt to do it. Yeah. Forget about telling them that they have to hire a mentor. It's like, the disconnect is huge then.
Yeah. And that's another thing, right? Like I have people asking me like, hey, could you just call me once a week and just kick my ass?
Yeah. And believe it or not, how necessary that is.
Yeah. So that's a reality too.
Yeah. And that's sometimes, I think for even, some of my students and some of them may watch this and, I'll hear about it on Monday when we do our coaching call. That is some of what I have to do. And that we have a once a week coaching call. And that is in a lot of cases about kicking them in the butt. Like, hey, what did you do last week that's going to get you to the goals that you set? And I want to see evidence of it, and oftentimes there is not very much evidence. So we have to start all over again, So, but that's, oftentimes it's necessary. I mean, I need that sometimes, so I'm not saying anything bad about them because I have someone that calls me up and say, hey, listen, what are you doing? So it's absolutely necessary. Then there's, for some of us, there's that ultimate measuring stick. What do those zeros in the bank account look like? If that's not motivation.
Yeah. I don't know if you've touched on this before too, but another accountability point is for me is I meet once a month with a bunch of other entrepreneurs, about 4 total of us. Mm-hmm. And we kind of just hold each other accountable to this stuff.
Definitely. Mm-hmm. Major stuff. The mastermind, that's something that's necessary for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
One of the things that I was having a conversation, we've been having this conversation for some time now about the pending or the pending idea of the recession. Recession that's been coming for a couple of years now. I was actually watching a video that I did 2 years ago talking about the potential recession coming. Tell me, what are your thoughts about the recession coming, or has it come? What are your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts is, it may sound disrespectful, but it isn't. It doesn't matter.
Now, before you go any further, let me just say this. For people who have a certain mindset that can receive that, they'll certainly understand what you're saying.
Okay.
But carry on. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you know, so your experience. What matters is if you're educated, if you're like actually preparing. Right? Because as real estate investors, we got to figure out how to address that timing.
Yes.
Any market, any area, springtime, winter is coming.
Yeah.
You got to figure out how to maximize your dollar. So if you're not educated, get educated, either through my brother Glenn here or through myself. If you're not prepared, define what that means for you. Maybe that means, you want to capitalize on some properties, you want to cash out some equity, you want to get connected with capital investors. There's a variety of different ways you can get prepared. The first one being education, because if you don't know what you're preparing for, if you're not taking inventory of what you even have, you're like hanging out in a closet, like just in the dark.
Wow, absolutely. Great stuff, man. And that just to your point, for some of the people that may not have received what you're saying when you said it doesn't matter. The point of that is if you already have a winter coat in the fall, you shouldn't be as fearful when the winter comes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Another one of those analogies is, what is it? Don't fix your roof when it's raining, or fix your roof before it's
raining. I got to throw in an analogy here too.
Yeah.
So imagine you're going to hike in a mountain nearby. What's the first thing you do?
Get hiking gear.
That's actually the best answer I've heard to start it off. But you first got to even know, you got to plop in the address in your GPS, right? And the GPS is going to tell you where you're at.
Absolutely.
And the route to get there. So similarly to education and getting the right resources, you don't know where you're at and where you want to be. You're just like, where am I going? I'm going to go hiking in a sewer today.
And I just and really just to piggyback on what you're saying, it's things like these where some folks will not even realize that there is a GPS that's available to get you to, even if you're targeting a sewer, if you're targeting a mountain to go hiking, there is a roadmap to get you there. You don't just have to get lost and end up there, but it's all about, as you're talking about what you focus on, and what your intentions are. And education and what we do is paramount for, getting to the level of success that some of us have been fortunate enough to be able to experience.
Amen.
So with you being an educator as well, can you give us a breakdown, as our time winds down? Give us a breakdown of a roadmap to obtaining a level of experience in doing what we do.
So there's a setup, and then there's finding, funding, and closing deals. Those are the 4 high-level stuff that really breaks down real estate investing and wholesaling, pretty much any part of the real estate equation. So people that try to make it complicated and do other stuff, it's just overcomplicating it for no reason. You're wasting time. Once you focus on those things, master those things, even if it's one section of it, you can make buku money.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You said something again that reminded me of what one of my mentors said. He said, if you can't explain what you do to a third grader, or someone on the third grade level, in many cases we'll call it, then it's probably because you don't understand it yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and that's oftentimes we get so, and I know for me, I had to kind of, you know, understand how to, you know, that gave me some clarity on how I share things with folks. You know, we talk high level in many cases, and there, and what we sometimes we miss is that what we do in many cases, it's simple. It's very simple. I mean, you gave us a roadmap in 4 easy steps, right? It's simple. I mean, it's not easy, but it's simple. If you, as you started out saying, listen to what the mentor tells you and understanding the importance of having a mentor in the first place.
Yeah. And like breaking down that, like you said, it's simple, but there's levels underneath. Breaking down that part into parts is why I've decided to do this, not only because of COVID, because a lot of people approach me about, like, how do I do this stuff? So I'm literally going to start with a live webinar. I'm going to cover this sort of stuff on that first live webinar in the coming weeks. And, you know, for people that are more interested in going into deeper dives, I'll be having conversations around that too. But the first live webinar will be free.
Okay. So tell us, I mean, how do folks reach out to you to become a part of the live webinar and have a more in-depth look at what you're doing?
Okay. So when you go to leavetheratcage.com, there's a little subscribe button there. You know, you'll just be alerted if you want to sign up for that, that, hey, this is coming up on this day at this time. Since a lot of the people that approach me about learning this stuff have full-time jobs, I'm going to make the first one at like in the evening, like 7 p.m., because I want folks to be able to leave their job, leave their rat cage, and do this sort of stuff so that they could spend more time with their families, their wives, if you're a woman, your husband, right? Whatever it means to you to be able to hang out. Like I made a video the other day too about like, wow, I get to like go visit my wife whenever I want, like to have a long lunch. I don't have to be like, hey manager, I'm gonna be back in about 3 hours because I want to take my time with my wife. That manager be like, what did you just say to me?
3 hours.
I'll take my time.
Right.
So
I
it's
want
like,
to make sure I got that right. You said it was leave the rat cage, RAT.
yeah, RATCAGE.com.
Got it. Okay. I want to make sure I had that right when I put it in there. Okay. So now this is how they'll find out about when the webinar is and how to connect with you and all that.
Yep, and the upcoming software that's coming too.
Okay. Good. I'll be going there right after we're done with this because I want to be, you know, the first in line.
Okay, cool.
So, is there is there another way folks can connect with you? I mean, you have like your social media or email address or something like that you want to share?
You know, since I'm sure a lot of your people online are cool people, I just want to invite them to just be straight up my Facebook friend.
Okay.
And, I have all this branding stuff online, but just add me as a friend. You know, my actual name, not my pen name, is Ivan Alfaro. So on Facebook, add me as that. It's ALF, F as in Frank, ARO. So look forward to like sharing cat videos with y'all and becoming friends with y'all.
I saw that too. All right, we'll get somebody to put that in. Listen, great stuff, great stuff, Ivan. You know, I'm glad we had an opportunity to get you on because I knew that, you know, we were going to definitely have a great time doing this. And you know, I can't wait to see, you know, this information, this, you know, the software that you're putting together and how it comes, you know, how it comes together to be able to help integrate all of what we do, because it's something that many of us, like even me, you know I have all of my different systems in different places and eventually they come together. But to be able to see something that actually helps them come together in an instant is going to be amazing for what we do.
Yeah. And I want to thank you, Glenn, for making this venue available. It's such a critical need. And I just want to, you know, bless you. May Jesus bless you in all the other things you're doing. And in this, may it grow to 100,000 times more audience, and just may your generations grow for many many generations to come.
Man, listen, I receive it. I receive it. I receive it. And you said the word, so I'm gonna say his name as well. I receive it in the name of Jesus. Because I believe that we're only as much as we believe in many cases, and we're it's according to our faith, so be it unto us. So thank you, brother. I definitely received that, man. And again, 100 times back to you as well.
Appreciate it.
Definitely. So anything you want to share with the folks before we get off? I'm gonna get the spiritual part out of you eventually.
That was kind of spiritual. I bless you. There you go. I can't think of anything else, brother. I guess I wish many blessings on whoever's watching too, that you may be focused and you may grow your generational wealth for your children and your children's children. I wish the sincere best for you, because that's what you deserve, the utmost best.
Absolutely. Listen, Ivan, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing with us today. Folks, definitely reach out to Ivan. He's got some, great stuff coming up. Any events, any new speaking engagements that you have? I know we're doing most of our stuff virtually now. Do you have anything else coming up you'd like to share?
So the ironic thing was I was supposed to do a speaking engagement with Atlanta Ria. So before COVID happened, like in March, like literally that.
Wow.
But I got to reach back out to them and see what's the latest, if they're doing Zoom meetings, and maybe I'll jump on there. But yeah, to keep apprised of everything I do, as much time as I have, just go onto that website, leavetheratcage.com, and you'll get an email of whatever's coming up.
Okay, great stuff. Yeah, Atlanta Ria, they are doing quite a bit of virtual stuff. I did some with them back in, I think it was April.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think I did some with them back in April. Yeah, they have a great platform.
Mm-hmm.
So I will certainly look forward to seeing you there. Again, folks, make sure you reach out to Ivan and get informed on the information that he has to share. That's at leavetheratcage.com again. And thank you all for watching. For those of you that are watching live with us, and for those of you that will eventually watch on the replay, thank you for supporting the show. Look forward to, some of you have been sponsors. Thank you very much for that. Look forward for some of you becoming sponsors, because we want to continue to share this information and continue to help people learn and grow and understand that we do as real life real estate investors. And this has been the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show, where we talk about real life real estate situations, but we bring you real life real estate solutions. Thank you all for watching. I look forward to seeing you real soon.